Imagine spending 10 years of your life building a literal utopia. Like you pour every single ounce of your energy, your savings, your whole heart into creating this flawless, beautiful paradise.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot of effort.
Right. And then one day someone just walks in, kicks you out, and forcefully steals it all from you. What is your reaction?
I mean, for most of us, it would be just pure rage.
Exactly. We would fight tooth and nail to get it back, or we'd be so completely shattered that you'd, just never build anything again.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But what if your only reaction was to smile, walk away, and immediately start building a brand new paradise? Today, for you listening, we are going on a deep dive into a philosophy that suggests letting people steal your success is actually the ultimate cheat code to a liberated life.
It is an incredibly provocative premise. And the source material we are exploring today is an essay written in 2016 by an author named Su Feng, translated by Kinyu. And the title leaves absolutely zero ambiguity about its mission. It's called Focus Solely on Creation and Contribution Without Worrying About Gains and Losses, Successes, and Failures.
It's a mouthful, but it gets right to the point.
It really does. The core argument here is that completely surrendering our deeply ingrained need for success, personal gain, or even basic recognition isn't just, some quaint moral platitude. The author argues it is the fundamental mechanical requirement for achieving a genuinely joyful existence.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because in our modern, hyper-competitive world, the idea of intentionally ignoring success sounds completely counterintuitive.
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds like a fast track to getting walked all over and just completely left behind. I mean, we are wired to care about outcomes. You put in the effort, you expect the reward.
Right, the transactional mindset.
Yeah. But the author argues that to understand why our transactional worldview is flawed, we first have to understand the invisible mechanics that govern the universe itself.
Precisely. The essay grounds its entire philosophy in the concept of the Great Tao. Now, in this context, the text describes the Great Tao as the absolute governing force of everything in existence. It dictates both the microscopic world of atoms and, the macroscopic world of galaxies.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere. The author uses a very specific, sweeping phrase to describe this authority. He says, "The net of heaven is vast, yet nothing escapes it."
Meaning there are absolutely no loopholes.
Exactly. The text is explicit that even gods, Buddhas, and celestial beings cannot escape the governance of the Tao, which means everyday mortals certainly cannot. We are all bound by its laws.
Which brings us to the biggest law.
Right. The most critical law introduced in this essay is the principle of strict energetic balance. The author asserts that the sum total of positive and negative energy in the universe is exactly zero.
Wait, exactly zero?
Exactly zero. Every action, every thought, every ounce of effort is accounted for in a flawlessly balanced system.
So if I'm visualizing this, it's like a perfectly balanced cosmic accounting ledger.
That's a great way to put it.
Like every single transaction, every debit, every credit has to eventually zero out. If you put something out there into the world, it must be accounted for in the ledger.
That is the exact mechanical reality the text is proposing. What one gives and what one gains must ultimately balance out. If you give, the universe dictates that you will inevitably receive.
And vice versa.
And conversely, if you receive something, you must eventually give. The text doesn't frame this as some vague feel-good karma, but as the absolute immovable justice of the universe.
I have to push back on this, though.
Go for it.
Because I know you listening are probably experienced the exact opposite of this. What about the single parent working 3 jobs, constantly pouring their energy out just to survive, who then gets laid off?
Yeah, that's the real-world friction.
Or someone who gives everything to a community that just turns its back on them? Is the cosmic ledger broken? Because when you look at the real world, the math rarely seems to add up. It almost never looks perfectly balanced.
The author actually anticipates that exact friction. The text insists that the justice of the Tao is absolute, but our human perspective is severely limited by our short timelines and our, very narrow definition of what receiving actually looks like.
Like getting a direct deposit on a Friday.
Exactly. We expect to put in physical effort and get back a physical paycheck right away. But the Tao's ledger operates on a much grander, sometimes multi-generational or spiritual scale. The author presents a profound paradox to explain how we should navigate this. He says, unselfishness leads to the fulfillment of the self, and selflessness leads to the realization of the self.
Wait, selflessness leads to the realization of the self? That sounds like a riddle.
It does sound a bit cryptic at first.
How does giving everything away help you realize who you are?
It sounds contradictory until you break down the psychology behind it. The text suggests that those who are truly selfless focus entirely on the act of creating and contributing. They literally do not spend mental energy calculating their own benefits or, auditing the cosmic ledger to see if they are getting their fair share.
Could they trust the system?
Right. By removing their ego from the equation, they leave the massive, complex job of balancing the gains and losses entirely to the Tao. Because they aren't constantly worried about being shortchanged, they don't experience the anxiety and bitterness that consumes the rest of us.
They just do the work.
They get to just live every single day joyfully immersed in the present act of giving.
Okay, that brings us right back to the scenario we started with.
The paradise.
Yeah. If the cosmic ledger always balances eventually, how does this philosophy ask us to handle actual painful injustice in the real world? Because it's one thing to say, hey, don't worry about getting credit for a spreadsheet at work.
Okay.
But what about the literal theft of your life's work? The author's paradise thought experiment is what really stopped me in my tracks.
It is the ultimate stress test for this philosophy.
Right. So the author sets up this hypothetical where you work incredibly hard to create a literal paradise. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then someone forcefully steals it from you.
Brutal.
In any normal framework, you call the police, you hire lawyers, you fight back. But the author's instruction is radical. The text says, do not get angry, do not get upset, and above all, do not doubt the Tao's justice.
You just let it go.
Instead, you are supposed to happily go and build a second paradise.
And the thought experiment pushes it even further. The text says, if that second paradise is stolen, you build a third.
You've got to be kidding.
And if that one is taken, you still don't harbor anger or hesitation. You joyfully begin creating a fourth paradise, repeating the cycle of creation and contribution infinitely.
Honestly, why become a cosmic doormat?
It's a tough pill to swallow.
In our culture, letting someone repeatedly steal your paradise just seems weak. It feels like you're enabling bad behavior. If someone steals my life's work, it's not just my ego that takes a hit. My family might suffer, my community might suffer. How does the text justify that kind of real-world collateral damage without just sounding like a bumper sticker?
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of possession that the author is actively dismantling. The text contrasts our normal, protective human reactions with those of a sage or a celestial being.
It's like, how so?
It argues that a sage has no selfish heart and instead takes the hearts of all people as his own. And even more radically, the text claims a celestial being has nothing of his own. Because in this framework, having nothing actually means having everything.
Having nothing means having everything. I'm going to need you to explain the mechanics of that because it sounds completely backwards.
Think about the actual mechanism of ownership. What happens the exact moment you claim ownership over that paradise you built?
I guess I try to protect it.
Exactly. The text says that once you possess something, you immediately develop attachments to it. You develop false thoughts, fears, and troubles, because now you have something to lose.
Right. The second I own the paradise, I have to build walls around it. I have to install an alarm system. I have to lie awake at night worrying about the exact people who might want to steal it.
You become a prisoner to it.
The paradise stops being a source of joy and becomes a source of anxiety.
Precisely. The possession itself becomes the engine of your suffering. It's like trying to freeze a flowing river by grabbing the water with your bare hands.
Oh, it's so too casual.
Not only do you fail to hold the water, but your hands freeze and become damaged in the process. The author argues that the true perfection of life is found entirely in the process of continuous creation, not in the hoarding of the result.
So the joy is in the doing.
If your joy comes entirely from the act of building, then a thief taking the finished product doesn't actually steal your joy. They just give you a blank canvas to experience the thrill of building all over again. The thief is basically taking the heavy burden of ownership off your shoulders.
But letting go of a paradise isn't just a psychological exercise to make us feel better about thieves, right? The author makes a compelling argument that we have to let go because the physical world is fundamentally incapable of being held onto in the first place.
Yes, the environment itself refuses to stay still.
Right. The author seamlessly shifts from the psychological burden of possession to the literal physical reality of our planet. There's a poignant quote in the text. A storm may arise from a clear sky. Man's fate is as unpredictable as the weather.
And he grounds that in real examples.
Yeah, the author uses very specific, massive environmental shifts. The essay mentions the disappearing Arctic ice cap. It points to the rapidly retreating glaciers at the source of the Yellow River. It talks about successive heat waves and ecological disasters following one after another.
And the purpose of highlighting those massive ecological shifts is to illustrate how unpredictable our foundations really are.
They're constantly shifting.
Small changes might happen gradually, but major catastrophic changes happen in an instant. The text asks a great question: who can guarantee that tomorrow will be the same as today? It emphasizes that human life and human achievements are unbelievably fragile.
The imagery used to convey this fragility is deeply rooted in ancient philosophy, yet incredibly vivid. The text compares the fleeting nature of life to a white horse passing through a crack.
That is such a striking image.
Let's actually pause and explain that because it's a brilliant idiom. A white horse passing through a crack.
Yeah.
Imagine standing on one side of a tall, solid wooden fence.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You put your eye up to a tiny crack between the boards. A galloping white horse flashes by on the other side. You see a blur of white for a fraction of a second, then it's gone. That is how fast the human lifespan is in the eyes of the universe.
It is a beautiful and humbling image. And the author pairs that with a proverb: the river flows 30 years to the east, 30 years to the west. The tides of fortune are always shifting.
Constantly moving back and forth.
And because of that constant, unstoppable shifting, the text states plainly that whatever you gain in the physical world simply cannot be kept. Once the inevitable changes occur, everything you've hoarded will disappear, as the text says, like water flowing eastward in the Yangtze River. Everything you've gained physically will eventually become nothing more than a fleeting dream.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you think about it, hoarding physical success is exactly like building a masterpiece sandcastle at low tide.
Oh, I love that analogy.
You can spend 8 hours making the towers perfectly symmetrical, carving the little windows, building a moat, but the tide is coming in regardless of how much effort you put in.
Yeah.
Getting furious at the ocean for washing your sandcastle away means you miss the entire point of playing in the sand.
You're fighting nature.
The joy was supposed to be in the feeling of the sand in your hands, not in preserving the castle forever.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is making a profound ontological statement about what is actually real. The text asserts that everything is a game, only life and nature are real.
The rest is just set dressing.
Accumulating physical treasures outside yourself, whether that's money, corporate status, or literal real estate, is not just hard to keep safe from the incoming tide. The text says it actively becomes a burden for your mind and life. You are carrying the weight of trying to freeze a universe that is fundamentally designed to flow, adapt, and change.
So if the physical things just wash away with the tide, and our human timelines are just a white horse flashing past a crack in a fence, what is the actual return on investment for all our hard work? What do we actually get to keep?
That's the big question.
Because then going back to the beginning, the cosmic ledger has to balance, right?
It absolutely does. And the text introduces a concept to explain how this works when physical things vanish. It says, lose at sunrise and gain at sunset.
Lose at sunrise, gain at sunset.
This means that a loss in one specific area directly translates to a gain in another. Losing today means gaining tomorrow. But the crucial part is that the currency of the exchange is what shifts.
How does the currency shift? What does that look like mechanically?
The text gives very specific examples of this conversion. It says, sweat lost is food gained.
That's the physical level.
Right. That's the basic physical level we all understand. You expend physical energy, you get physical sustenance. But then it goes deeper into the metaphysical. It says, effort lost is spirit gained, worldly losses lead to heavenly gains, and losses in this life lead to gains in the next. The core thesis is that no effort is ever lost in vain, and nothing is gained without a reason.
But where is that gain actually stored? If I can't keep my reward in a bank account, and I can't keep it in the physical paradise I built because a thief or a storm might take it, where does the Tao deposit my cosmic paycheck?
The text is incredibly clear on this point. Only what is embedded in your consciousness is truly yours.
Your consciousness.
That is the only vault that survives the rapid changes of the physical world. Think of consciousness not just as some mystical aura, but as your deepest psychological operating system. It is the ultimate black box recorder of your life. And what you choose to embed into that consciousness determines your entire trajectory.
The essay uses some intense terminology to describe that trajectory. It says that if your consciousness is embedded with animal characteristics, you will descend. But if it is embedded with the characteristics of celestial beings and Buddhas, you will ascend.
Let's ground those terms in modern reality because it is highly relevant. Anyuan characteristics in this context refer to the instinctual drive to hoard, to dominate, to operate from a mindset of deep scarcity and fear.
It's the survival instinct on overdrive.
It's the anxiety that makes you build walls around your paradise. Embedding those traits into your operating system causes you to descend into a state of permanent stress and burnout. Conversely, the characteristics of celestial beings represent an abundance mindset. It's the ability to operate in a pure flow state, giving freely without calculating the return.
And how do you embed those celestial characteristics? How do you actually program that into your black box?
Through your attitude during the daily process of living, the text states that the process is the result. If the process is not good, the result will not be good.
They're inseparable.
It argues that spending a lifetime harboring troubles, resentments, and calculations will literally program your consciousness to experience more troubles, whereas a lifetime of focusing on the joy of creation will program your consciousness for permanent joy.
So what does this all mean? Like, how does someone listening translate this ancient philosophical metric to a regular Tuesday at the office?
Let's hear an example.
Let's say you're working on a massive project, you're putting in extra hours, you're doing brilliant work, and then your boss steps in and takes all the credit in front of the executives. Normally, that is a ruined Tuesday. That is a fast track to resentment and burnout.
Under our normal transactional worldview, yes, it is a complete disaster. You put in the sweat and someone else got the food. But under the framework of this essay, it is actually the exact opposite. The text presents a highly counterintuitive metric for success. It explicitly states, giving much and receiving little is a fortunate event in life, a way to avoid misfortune.
Wait, giving much and receiving little is a fortunate event. That sounds like terrible career advice.
It sounds terrible until you remember the mechanics of the cosmic ledger and the vault of consciousness. If you give massive amounts of effort, if you create a brilliant project and contribute selflessly, and you receive very little worldly reward or recognition from your boss, you haven't lost anything.
The ledger balances.
You have built up a massive positive balance in your consciousness. You have embedded resilience, mastery of your skills, and the characteristics of a celestial being who focuses only on giving. Your boss, on the other hand, just took an unearned withdrawal.
Because if your boss takes more credit than they actually earned, they are going into cosmic debt. They are embedding those selfish, hoarding animal characteristics into their own consciousness. So back to that Tuesday at work. If you focus purely on the joy of doing the work well, on the flow state of creating a great project, the result, who gets the credit, whether it earns a bonus, naturally takes care of itself in the grand scheme of the Tao.
The balance is automatic.
The physical reward might go to the boss, but the capacity for joyful creation is the only thing that actually gets written to your permanent hard drive.
Exactly. The text advises us to create with joy and contribute with happiness, regardless of who is watching or who is taking the credit. It promises that by maintaining this joyful process, you will undoubtedly ascend. You free yourself entirely from the paralyzing anxiety of managing the outcome.
It is a complete paradigm shift. We are really synthesizing a journey here from a modern mindset of constant fear and calculation to a mindset of total emotional liberation.
It's incredibly freeing.
By letting go of our tight grip on the results of our efforts and trusting that the absolute cosmic balance of the universe will handle the accounting, we don't have to be anxious anymore. We don't have to build walls around our paradises or resent the tides for washing away our sandcastles. We just get to wake up and enjoy the pure, unadulterated act of creating.
This raises an important question, though, especially for the complex times we live in today. How do we maintain this joyful process of creation when things around us feel legitimately dark, unjust, or deeply uncertain?
It's hard not to focus on the dark sometimes.
My text closes with a remarkably beautiful metaphor for this exact challenge. It advises us to entrust our lives to the greatest creator, entrust our lives to the flow of the Tao, and simply keep focusing on creating and contributing. And then it says this, by chasing the sun, we can escape the darkness.
By chasing the sun, we can escape the darkness. That is an incredible visual.
It is so practical, too. It tells us not to waste our energy worrying about the shadows behind us, not to calculate how dark it is, and not to try and manage the outcomes. Just keep moving toward the light. Focus your heart and your effort every single day on creating without ego. The darkness naturally falls away simply because you are consistently walking toward the sun.
For you, listening right now, I know this is a massive philosophical pill to swallow. In a society that is absolutely obsessed with what's in it for me, and constantly terrified of missing out or falling behind, choosing to focus purely on creating without ego is an incredibly radical act.
It is.
It is almost an act of rebellion against the modern world. But it's also incredibly liberating. It takes the heaviest backpack off your shoulders. So I want to leave you with a challenge to mull over today. Think about a specific paradise in your own life.
We all have one.
It could be a project at work you are fiercely protective of, a relationship you are constantly trying to manage and control the outcome of, or, a 5-year career plan you were just white-knuckling. You've been clinging to it so tightly that the possession of it is actually causing you fear, stress, and anxiety.
What would happen if you mentally let go of possessing it today?
Just completely let it go.
What if you completely surrendered the need to control the final outcome and instead just focus entirely on the joy of laying the very next brick? Could losing your attachment to the outcome be the exact thing that saves the project, or better yet, the exact thing that saves you?